Coming up on the LCS preview show, we break down the playoff race, blow up the record books, and count down the biggest plays of the week. Don't touch that browser. The LCS preview show starts right now.
He's still alive. Shifter finally goes down and the double ace.
Well, no matter what happens, the whole game was worth it at this point.
And Genji now going to be jumped on and finished off.
Nice! The Super Hot Crew tie Gambit 2 and 2 on the split.
It will not be a 4-game shutout for Team Solomon. GLG takes the last one.
We really didn't want them to have the C9, 25-3.
Alliance will take the 8th win in a row, and for the 3rd week running, they have themselves a perfect 2-0 victory.
What's up, everyone? I'm Rivington Vision III and going ultra rapid fire mode through the LCS. Today with me is Joshua Jat Leeson. How you doing, Jat?
I'm doing real good. We have a super week, which means non-stop League of Legends for about 6 days.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic. And we kick off our look back at Europe's biggest games from Week 10 with a battle between the hottest team in the European LCS and a Roccat squad hoping to stall their fall from the top of the table. As we jump into the highlights, Alliance came into their game against Roccat riding a 6-game winning streak. But Overpow coming out big in the beginning on this one with some rise play.
Yeah, it seemed like at this point maybe Roccat would stop the Alliance streak. You know, being down 10,000 gold and winning a team fight of this magnitude in this big of a way, it seemed like Roccat might have the momentum here.
Yeah, it doesn't stop there, though, for Alliance. It looked bad, but it only gets better as it has since the beginning of the split for them. Coming into this fight, Tabs coming up huge with the double kill, and Alliance secures the base.
Yeah, they kind of showed that fight that they lost was a bit of a mistake, and they come out with another victory in a row.
Extending that winning streak to 7 is never a bad thing. Alliance was back at it on Friday, fighting for a share of first place when they took on SK Gaming. Didn't take Froggen very long to start hopping some walls.
Yeah, Zed was ridiculous this game for Froggen. He is just playing so well. Got the Ignite burn right there down to finish him off. Froggen never wears the jacket either.
Nope. Having so many unique champions across so many different games as well. He keeps playing hopscotch on this one, shutting people down over the walls, one after the other with Zed. And wouldn't you think, it happens again, and N-Rated just dances to death here.
Yeah, about half a second on top of N-Rated. Boop! And he's gone. Alliance 20-7. Froggen is on fire.
Finishing that game 9-1-7. As Zed helps them move into first place. Next up, later that Friday, 7th place Super Hot Crew helped to keep their playoff hopes alive when they took on 2nd place Gambit.
Yeah, and Xin Zhao was pretty big for Diamond this week right there, being able to get the counter gank onto Impaler and take the first blood, but the Gambit composition didn't necessarily scale that well. This was their last chance to make a big play.
Yeah, business as usual for Gambit, and Diamond coming in very strong. A lot of the Xin Zhao lately in that in-and-out play with a little bit of Sona from Edward is helping them take the fights.
This fight was so expertly played by Gambit. The in and out, the back and forth, and finally the flash over the wall by Darian and Alex to pick up some critical kills. Slow game up to this point, and Gambit was really trying to make their move.
And they made their move at a Baron, but Super Hot Crew was just a few steps ahead and were really able to take control here at 40 minutes.
Yeah, a lot of people would say this was a bad call by Gambit, but it was kind of what they had to do. Even with the gold lead, they knew they were going to get outscaled, so they tried the Baron. Super Hot Crew shut him down.
And a big upset win there for the Super Hot Crew against the highly rated Gambit Gaming. So many league games going on, and even more this week. Our next highlight comes from Gambit and SK, already losing it out. We'll have to see what they have for each other.
Yeah, so Fnatic and Millennium get the chance to try and move up in the standings with those games happening. And here we go, Peke on Zed. We've seen a lot of him this week.
That's right, we do see Fnatic versus Millennium, rather. And Kevin is going to be taken down as Soaz comes in very strong. Kurt does what you can, but the zones only lasts so long.
Yeah, as long range as Aerith is, once he gets closed on, it's just curtains for him. Nice stun there by Fnatic as they continue to press.
Pressing that game helps Fnatic move up in the standings, making quick work of that, and after a week of games that only made the table more cluttered. Let's take a look at the glorious ties. Thanks to their 8-game winning streak, Alliance has clawed their way up from the floor to the top of the table, where they're joined by Fnatic and SK Gaming. But the traffic jam doesn't stop there, as Gambit and Roccat are tied for 4th, with the Wolves and Crew fighting for the 6th seed. But the table is far from set, and the seats will be rearranged after this Super Week's worth of games. Today couldn't start off any more super. A first-place battle between Fnatic and Alliance, with sole possession of the top spot on the line. Then on Wednesday, we've got 6 games coming your way, including a fight that features longtime rivals Gambit and Fnatic, as Edward and the Suits look to reclaim a spot at the head of the table. Then on the final day of the European regular season, all the ties will be settled. Whether it's during our 5 regularly scheduled matches or in the bonus coverage, that's all but guaranteed to happen right after. And with so many incredible games all having an impact on the playoff picture, we're not going to pick a BF Game of the Week, but instead we're going to break down the BF Week of games. There are 96 official results already in the European LCS match history, and as we head into the final 16 contests, every team still has a shot at the postseason. And on the flip side, every squad is still in danger of missing the playoffs. So now to drop some knowledge on the postseason possibilities, I'd like to welcome Quickshot to the show. How's it going, Quickshot?
Have enough time to cover all the possibilities, but I'll do my best to at least clear up some of them.
All right, sounds good. Let's kick off our postseason postulations with a look at the teams at the bottom of the table: the Wolves, the Crew, and the Millennium.
Well, let's start with Millennium, since they have the least likely chance of making it to the postseason. In order to make it, they need to do something that they haven't done all year: win 4 games in a row. But even if they do that, and they go from 7 wins to 11 wins in just 1 week, they still need a lot of help. They need the Super Hot Crew to beat the Wolves, but then lose the rest of the games. Plus, they need the Wolves to lose all 4 of those games. And even if all of those stars align, all that's actually going to do is create a 3-way tiebreaker for those final positions in the playoffs. Now, for the Super Hot Crew, their job is considerably easier, but they still need a little help. If the Crew beats the Wolves in their head-to-head match, then all they have to do is win 1 more game than the Wolves the rest of the Super Week to guarantee 6th place. But even if they lose their head-to-head against the Copenhagen Wolves, at least if they can pull off 2 more wins than the Wolves, they'll tie for 6th place and force another tiebreaker. The Copenhagen Wolves, on the other hand, they are in control of their own destiny. All they have to do to lock in 6th place is win 1 more game than the Super Hot Crew. Or if the Wolves beat the Super Hot Crew in their head-to-head, their Super Week match this week, they can even go 1 worse in that win-loss column and still force that tiebreaker. Now, while the Wolves and Super Hot Crew are both still technically alive for a first-round bye, it would take a miracle. So I'm going to mention it. It's possible. I've mentioned it. Let's move on. Team Rocket is the next team I want to talk about. Now, they have a very real possibility of grabbing one of those first-round buys. But first, they have to make the playoffs. And for Rocket and the rest of the other teams sitting higher up on the table, the old adage holds true: win games and you're in. In fact, all it will take is 2 wins, or 1 win and a loss by the Super Hot Crew for Rocket to be postseason bound going to the playoffs. Even if they lose 3 more games than the Super Hot Crew, Rocket still gets at least that tiebreaker match for 6th. I think you're seeing a trend with tiebreakers. The worst case scenario for Overpower and Crew is that if they lose all 4 games, and if Super Hot Crew wins all 4 of their matches, that means Rocket's season reaches terminal velocity and they're facing promotion. Now, while that's the worst that can happen, the best that can happen is a first-place finish. Rocket can end the week tied with Gambit and still take the title thanks to their head-to-head, whereas a tie with Alliance would force a playoff, and a tie with SK would place them in 2nd, once again, thanks to those head-to-heads. And of course, that's only if there was 2-way ties. When you start figuring in 3- and 4-way ties, there's far more math than even Pythagoras can handle, and a Thursday full of loads more bonus content. Now let's move on to the next team. Let's start with Gambit. Just like Rocket, all it takes is 2 wins or 1 win and a loss by Super Hot Crew. This will guarantee a playoff spot for Gambit. And also like Rocket, it would take 3 more losses than the Super Hot Crew to force a tiebreaker. Now, with 4 more losses sending them into the promotion tournament, that means Gambit actually faces promo as a possibility. As far as first place is concerned for Gambit, they will have to finish all alone at the top of the table, since their head-to-head against the other teams are the worst of the contenders. That means it'll probably take a 4-0 performance or a Thursday tiebreaker for Gambit to swagger their way into first place. Now, meanwhile, for the rest of the teams to guarantee a post-season appearance for SK Gaming and the other first-place team, which includes Fnatic and Alliance, the quest for first goes in favor of SK. They've got one of the best records against the other top teams, and depending on this week's results, they could be 3-1 against all 3 of them. But no matter what, they won't have a losing record against them, which is great for those tiebreakers. For Fnatic, it's win one and they're in as well. But the quest for first will be much harder and once again take a super week's worth of wins. They are currently on the losing side of 2/3 of their games against Alliance and SK Gaming, and they'll have to even up those series if they want a shot at number one. The last team to talk about is also the hottest team in Europe right now. Alliance is the only squad that has a winning record versus all 4 of their super weak opponents. So I've got to say that heading into this final set of games, based on the way they're playing and their schedule, Alliance has got to be the favorites to finish at the top of the table. It's Super Hot Crew that are the heartbreakers, so we'll have to keep an eye on their results.
All right, quick shot. Everyone, thanks you for doing all the homework that had more numbers than my binary math finals.
Yeah, this is one of the toughest weeks for everybody involved. The pressure on the teams is immense, and thanks to all of the ties, it means we the casters have to do math, and hopefully I haven't bored you all to death. We'll see how the games play out.
All right, for now, for more on the team that Quickshot predicted would finish first in the European LCS, I'd like to now welcome Shox to the show. How's it going, Shox?
Everything's okay. I'm very fired up for Super Week.
As am I. You recently had a chance to talk to Alliance. What do they credit for their recent success?
Well, both Froggen and Wicked credit their recent success to the team getting to know one another. Wicked says that they know each other's limits and they know exactly what everyone will do at any given time. Now, Nif also points towards the team's increased champion pool, improved pick and ban phase, and a shift in their playstyle to a more objective-oriented approach for their success.
And all those small changes have led to some huge success. With just 2 more wins, Alliance will set a record for the longest winning streak in the history of the European LCS. Do they consider themselves to be the best team in Europe right now?
Well, when I asked Alliance that question, Niv said that if they can cut down on their mistakes, they are, quote, the best right now, while Wicked said that if they can beat Fnatic in the first game of Super Week, they should be in good shape to beat everyone else as well.
It just seems fair that you should have to beat a team before you beat down their record. Now, I want to ask you as we move on about Froggen. Over the last 8 games, he's played 7 different champions and won 2 MVP awards. What did Froggen have to say about his recent performances?
Well, Froggen said that he hasn't really changed his style, but he pointed to overall team synergy for his success. He says despite his reputation, he's always roamed, and his champion pool has always been big. He's just finally getting to play them in the LCS. Now, as far as where he ranks among European mid laners, he deflected the question, saying that basically it's impossible to rank them, but his teammate Nif, he wasn't as modest. Nif had very high praise for Froggen's ability to play every champion his team's comp requires, and also for Froggen's laning phase, which he called the best in Europe. Overall, Nif said that Froggen is, quote, by far the best mid laner in Europe right now.
All right, Shox, thanks for hitting up Alliance and giving us an inside look at what they credit for their success.
It's always a pleasure, Riv. April's Fools.
Nice, Shox. Now for more on the records that are on the brink of being broken this week, like Fnatic's win streak, let's send it across the studio to Jat.
Thanks. Last summer, we saw LCS records set for the most kills, most deaths, and most assists in a single split. And this spring, we're close to seeing the LCS record book rewritten once again. Let's get started. We touched on Bjergsen's quest for kills per game title last week. Despite having a down week, 11 kills in 2 games, he's still on pace to average more kills per game than he's ever had before. Also, anyone has ever had before. However, his chances of breaking ManCloud's mark for most kills in a split took a serious hit last week. He now needs 35 kills over the next 4 games to take the title. Another per game record that could be getting broken would be the highest gold per minute mark. All Wild Turtle has to do is keep making that money at this rate, and he's going to break his own record. And now from a money bag to a scumbag, we have Edward right here. He's poised to break his own mark of 46 kills secured as a support if he averages 2.5 kills per game over the Super Week. That's a total of 10 kill steals, or kill secures, as Edward would like to say, in the next week. Another bot lane record that could fall this week is the record for most kills as an AD carry in a split. Sneaky actually currently has 129 kills, which means he is 23 kills off of tying double-less record. That would be 5.75 kills per game. Sneaky's currently average 5.38 per game, so it's going to be close. But we can't forget about Wild Turtle. He's more than capable of jumping over both of them and setting the record himself. Besides sneaking up on double-less record, Sneaky's also sneaking up on Cop's record for KDA in a split from an AD carry. But whether he breaks that record or not, Sneaky is quietly putting up one of the best statistical splits ever by an AD carry. And another record that could be falling would be Meteos' split for most kills by a jungler in a split. Diamond set the record last spring, and Meteos has already equaled that mark this spring with 4 games to go. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say Meteos has this one. The reverse of that record, however, is a little bit more dubious. Most deaths by a jungler. NK Inc had 115 respawns, which are only 15 more than Coast and Tendudex, who will hold this title if his 4 deaths per game average holds up over Super Week. And the last record that looks to be rewritten is the assist by a top laner, currently held by Soaz. Darius is averaging 8 assists per game, which should help him reach the old record this week. Now for a look at one last record that might be broken this week, let's head back over to Riv.
And with 3 more champs making their 2014 debut in Week 10, we're getting close to setting a record for the most champs picked in a split. Let's take a look. Last week, Snoopy pulled Nautilus out of the depths of his champion pool, with Wild Turtle showing off his Twitch reflexes shortly after. And the third new champ to light up the stage was Golden Glue's Lux. That brings this spring's total to 88 champions. That's just 3 short of last summer's total and 5 short of last spring's record. Now we have another season to root for some to whip out a Heimerdinger this week. Obviously, the Super Week will have a lot of opportunities. But the question is, will any of you be brave enough to tweet him as your pick for the next champ to be played? Hit us up at LOL Esports and mark it with a hashtag LCS preview if you think you know who will be next. Now, as far as last week's predictions, I've got to give some love to the people who picked Vel'Koz, especially at NJ Stelzner, who said Vel'Koz will be played at support, and D-Claude, who used the word tentakill. We just like that one. Plus, I've got some gold stars for no mind reading, and Luca Brody for correctly choosing Nautilus, with a special shout out going to at M. Groenbach for saying it would be Snoopy who picked him. Very nice work. And speaking of tweets, last week we received one from a pro who just happened to be watching the LCS preview show. After seeing himself prominently featured in our last hit, Shifter tweeted, "That last hit, that's so troll." After further review, I'm going to have to disagree with you, Shifter. That wasn't troll. This is troll.
Shifter, that's the one they need to shut down. Oh, the barrier goes down. They're going hard for Shifter. They take him out.
Oh, the stun hits Shifter, not in a good spot. Down he goes.
Oh, he hit it. The charm goes out. They are easily going to get that one, and they do get the blue buff back to Link. Going on to Shifter, the Ignite's there, the heal comes out, it's going to be enough. Doesn't make it to the fountain, he trips on his shoelaces.
Man, what a massacre.
All right, April Fool's antics aside, Shifter came up big this week as Team Coast took 2 huge steps towards the postseason. But up first, it's the battle between 2 of the top teams in the league, Counterlogic Gaming and Team Solo Mid. TSM coming into this match a 3-0 record in the head-to-head against their old rivals, who were looking for the sweep.
What a game this was. And even though First Blood wasn't until 7.5 minutes, there were many kills to come.
And I loved every one of these fights. Pretty much going coast to coast the entire time. This one goes back and forth. The Lantern saves as usual from Alframu on Thresh. Everybody pretty much got the picks they wanted this game.
That time Wild Turtle flashed in to finish off a kill, unlike the end of the game.
And then we're looking at just 23 minutes in. You got to remember the lineup, the spray and pray from Wild Turtle here for the triple kill.
Yeah, we're just kind of wondering what just happened to CLG's health because Wild Turtle obliterated them. That's why they picked Twitch for the first time.
And more plays to come in. A huge assist from Dexter here. So many Lee Sin kicks to the face of TSM in this game.
Yeah, and that's why he picked Lee Sin as well. A couple kicks back on Shyvana. That big one down onto Wild Turtle. There's the hugs after the game.
CLG beating TSM for the first time this split. Team Solo Mid's loss, that opened up the door for Cloud9 to move in for a tie from first place with a victory against Curse.
Yeah, and the door is open for a big level 1 fight as well. Soraka Starcall at level 1 is pretty scary to deal with. Here's why.
Chicken Little's going to be running here. The sky is definitely falling. Look at all of the area of effect damage as the schoolyard fight breaks out at level 1.
Yeah, Cloud9 picking up 2 quick kills there at level 1. Nearly getting a third if that Dark Binding would have landed, but that gave him some momentum.
And first time we see Soraka, she does not displease. A double kill here coming from High with a bit of help on Meteos on the outside. You can just see High hovering around the brink of death the entire time.
Yeah, High, first one to break out mid lane Soraka in the LCS. Gets the double kill after falling himself. You can't get close to Soraka or she will shred you.
And as the game escalates, if Cloud9 is on top, they will make your base theirs, as Cloud9 does here, consistently taking down Curse. The domino effect falls into place, and the Nexus follows shortly after.
Just an overpowering push there. Cloud9, business as usual for them.
Absolutely. The next highlight we look at, speaking of TSM, on Sunday it was their turn to take on Curse and try to avoid losing 2 games in a row for the first time all year.
Yeah, and TSM started off pretty shaky, and it was followed after a big comeback by 25-minute Dragon Fight loss. Curse was looking really good after this one.
always getting something great for themselves, but sometimes overstaying their welcome. This fight looks so good, but TSM was on the chase for what would lead to the unofficial quadra here for Bjergsen.
Bjergsen's Nidalee chases fast and far. Doesn't even need to land all his spears because he's so fast, hopping over every wall to maximize his distance. Does land that one though, splits the clone.
Teamwork here. Somebody take the right, I'll take the low road. He gets the kill. The unofficial quadra, as we said. TSM bounced back, and Bjergsen's triple kill leads this game to the victory. Up next, Dig's new mid laner Golden Glue finished up his first week in the LCS with a matchup against one of the best mids North America has to offer.
Not the best way to start, dying at level 2. As Hai said afterwards, he was not respecting the Lulu lane. Didn't actually cost him that hard, though, because he came back big.
He did come back big. See the damage from this laser coming out. Unfortunately, they weren't able to follow up too big, but these kills would help solidify Dig a little bit more ground in the game.
Yeah, really long fight here. Dignitas was on their heels right before this fight, and they are so close against Cloud9. They always play this team tough. Nice triple there by Cutie Pie, and then Golden Glue comes back after his final spark to start with a light binding to finish.
Very nicely played. Getting his shield out, you can see he's considering that damage that Hai was about to bring to the table. And you see it right here as Cloud9 perseveres through another big fight. And Hai going downtown on this one as he flashes for another one.
Yeah, that was a nice dark binding to really secure the game. Flash! Glitter Lance. Of course, after this one, it was all said and done. Zoomed in fist bump.
All you need is the fist bump, and it's the victory. With Week 10 in the rear view and Super Week in our front view, let's take a look at the standings. Cloud9 and Team Solomid are tied in first place and guaranteed a trip to the postseason. In third place is CounterLogic Gaming, who has also punched their ticket to the playoffs.
Yeah, and the race for fourth place got a little tighter after last week's games, with only one win separating Dig from Coast and Curse. Finally, we got that EG and XGG at the bottom, tied for 7th.
But all those ties won't last for long, as we've got 16 games coming your way this weekend. Friday is stacked with head-to-head tie busters as Curse takes on both Coast and Dignitas in the fight for fourth.
Then on Saturday, we've got 6 more games, including the fourth and final meeting of the spring between Team Solomid and Cloud9. And then on Sunday, the 2014 NALCS Spring Split wraps up with 5 more matches. And once the dust is settled, if we still have any ties in the standings, those will be taken care of immediately following the fight between XGG and EG with some bonus LCS action.
And just like in Europe, we couldn't pick just one BF game of the week, but instead we will break down the BF week of games. Unlike last summer when much of the standings were basically set, this spring the final 16 games will impact everything from the first place to last place. And while the squads are basically divided into the have winning records and have not, there's a theme running through this final week. Do what you can to avoid facing CounterLogic Gaming in the playoffs. But before we get to CLG, let's start the parade of postseason possibilities with 2 teams unlikely to face Doublelift and Crew in the playoffs.
Yeah, well, XGG and Evil Geniuses are most likely not to make it there. It's because both of those teams are 3 games out of 6 with only 4 games to play. To make matters worse, EG's head-to-head versus Curse is the only tiebreaker either team owns. And since these teams would have to win 4 games in 1 week when they've only won 6 games all year, it's pretty safe to say they need to start looking towards the promotion tournament. And that's what makes this race for 7th place so interesting. Whoever finishes 8th will most likely have to face LMQ in the promotion tournament, and frankly, LMQ is playing better than either of these teams right now. So while Sunday's game between XGG and EG doesn't have the prestige of Saturday's TSM Cloud9 game, it could be the difference between finishing 7th and having a much better chance of regaining a spot in the LCS, and finishing 8th and having to face up against LMQ. Next, I want to hit the fight for 4th, but really, it's the fight for not finishing 6th. These teams need to avoid fighting CLG in the first round of the playoffs. Now, despite being 1 game back of Dignitas in the standings, the team that has the best shot of avoiding a 6th place finish and a quarterfinal fight with 3rd-seeded CLG is Curse. They own the tiebreaker against Dignitas and will at least tie Coast in head-to-head wins. Plus, based on their Super Week schedule, Curse would be predicted to go 2-2 and finish 5th or higher. Now on to Dignitas. They have the 2nd best statistical chance to finish in 4th or 5th. They own the tiebreaker against Coast and have winning records against 2 of their opponents this week. That brings us to Team Coast now. While they all but guaranteed themselves a playoff berth with 2 clutch wins last week, Coast is the only team out of 3 to have to play TSM and Cloud9. And unless Team Coast can pull off a couple of huge upsets, they're likely to take 6th and face CLG in the quarterfinals. Now to be fair, Dig, Coast, and Curse aren't the only teams hoping to avoid getting ganked by Dexter and Crew. Team Solomid and Cloud9 have both said that they would have liked to avoid that situation in the semifinals. And the best way to do that is finish first. as the top seed will face the winners of the 4th versus 5th matchup in the semifinals, most likely Digger Curse, while the second place team will square off against the winner of the 3rd versus 6th matchup, which, if our postulating is correct, will be CLG or Coast. And in that fight for first, Team Solomid has the much easier Super Week schedule as they face the bottom 3 teams in the league, while Cloud9 has a showdown with CLG on Friday. Now, if both TSM and Cloud9 can avoid being upset, and Cloud9 can take out Counter Logic Gaming one more time, that means we'll be in for an incredible battle for first place on Saturday. A lot of ifs, though. Now, if you're wondering why we framed this playoff picture around teams trying to avoid a matchup against CLG, here's why. Ever since Dexter has started roaming their jungle, Counter Logic Gaming has finally started living up to their potential, or even exceeding it. Over the last 7 weeks of the spring, CLG has compiled a 12-3 record and posted a team KDA of 5.17. Also consider that Counter Logic Gaming not only beat Team Solomid last week, but they've also fought Cloud9 to a 1-1 record since Dexter joined the lineup. In fact, if Dexter had been starting on CLG since the start of the split, we'd probably be talking about a 3-way race for first place heading into Super Week instead of the 2-way tie we have right now.
Yeah, and when you add all those stats and the fact that CLG's bot lane has a special kind of synergy and they look this good, it's no wonder that all the other teams want to avoid them in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Happy April Fools, CLG.
That's a tricky one. Aframu always supporting Double Lift.
Such a soft touch from Double. Now from the silly to the sublime, let's take a look at the top 5 plays from Week 10 of the LCS, or as Afro Lift calls it, the Penta.
Yeah, at number 5, Zuna comes face-to-face with a runaway bull.
Down on everything he has. Aframu is looking right for him, and he crunches him down into mincemeat.
Aframu just smashes Zuna's face into the ground.
And coming in at number 4, it's Forgiven with the huge outplay.
Jumping in here, can he get to Forgiven? Ace in the hole goes through from this one. Takes him down to about 2/3 of his HP, and here comes Kerp as well. The damage, flashed away from, and he's turned it around. Amazing play from Forgiven.
Number 3, it's Dexter's clutch kick.
It's very hurt on the outside, but that's the clone. He actually goes down to the hands of Dexter, and TSM is still trying to find where the rest of the team is. A double kill! Beautiful play from Dexter and Double Lift, and they're going to keep going, and they're going to have eyes possibly on Baron.
Coming in at number 2, EG's Ken brings Pobelter along for the ride.
The last few shots when he shields himself up. There's the box. Oh, the long way! Get the lantern! Brings in Pobelter! He gets the double distortion follow-up, and they do find the kill after the long haul.
And this time it's Froggen taking a ride on the Thresh Express for the number 1 play of the week.
Does himself favors. I'm not too sure if this is going to quite be enough. The lantern flash run near pulls Froggen across from 2.
Right there, that was so good, they've had to pause the game to give him a high five.
I'm so excited to see those plays as we kind of start 4.4, because now we get 16 games kind of out of each region with that much play.
Double the amount of games, a few more LCS big plays, but still the same number of highlights. So the quality has to improve, right?
And everybody's got their top-notch champions. They're ready. These are when the strats have to come out. There's no more lackadaisical, we can kind of wait and play this team better than the other. It's going to be all out and going for broke here in Super Week. All right, guys, that does it for this week's adventures. But before we go, we have a pair of last hits on us.
Healthy people coming off the base, chat. It could be staved off.
Yeah, 3v5, but the Baron buff is still there. That's 2 inhibitors down. Coast just going. They got Super Minutes on the other side.
Wiz Fusion can't get himself in range for these Nexus turrets. There's no focus there. It's just locked onto Zion Spartan. EG is trying to micro in and out to save themselves from damage. Snoopy goes for the micro in, and the focus onto Nintendo X as he gets a kill. Shifter almost goes down in that one. No, he will. Sliver of health left. Stays alive. Shifter with the plays. Here we go. Inox may take him down, but the Zanya's play. Everybody jumps on one spot. All the eggs in one basket. He's still alive. Shifter finally goes down to the end.
Double ace.
The last breath and the double ace. Nobody's going to end the game.
Well, no matter what happens, the whole game was worth it at this point because we just got our first double ace.